our new podcast, The Real Estate Mix. So today, we're going to have every single week a mix of professionals. But this week, we're starting with our core, our experts. Those that are going to keep you in the mix of everything real estate. So I'm going to go around the table. We're going to talk about different topics. You're going to be able to ask all the questions you want to. And let me introduce them for you so you know who our core team, our experts, who they are. First, we have Adam Sperber. He is a real estate professional, residential real estate professional. Next, we have Nima Ameri. Nima Ameri is the principal partner of Ameri Law. He's a real estate attorney, and I just like to call him a rock star deal maker. Next, we have Eric Anderson. Eric Anderson is the CEO of Alexander Anderson Real Estate Group. And last but not least at all, we have Omar Sharif. Omar Sharif is a real estate investor and the VP of Alexander Anderson Real Estate Capital Group. All right, so we are going to start with some exciting deals that these guys are doing, right?
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay. You guys loose, you ready?
We're ready.
Okay. So we're going to go around and we're going to talk about some exciting real estate deals that are happening right now. Who's going to start? Who wants to be the first victim?
Great question. So I guess I'll be the first victim. So Noel, thanks for that great intro. Our goal here is to just talk about different things and give you insight to what's really happening out there in the world. So one exciting deal that we're working on right now, and we're not going to share with you the exact location of it because a lot of this stuff is confidential, but we want to give you a flavor of what we're doing and what you could expect in the future, and exciting stuff. So we have this 4,500 square foot office building that was a real estate owned property that we sold to an investor about a year and a half ago before COVID really got into full swing. So we sold this property for the mid $200,000 range. We had some issues with COVID because, as you know, everybody was locked down, so none of the work was getting done, nothing could proceed. It was just sitting there. And while a property is sitting there, even though it's not costing you anything on the rehab basis because you can't do any work, it's actually costing you a lot of money on lost opportunity, on interest costs, and all that money that you put into it, it's losing interest and losing opportunity in other places. So any good investor is going to add that onto their cost basis. So finally, like 2 years later, the property's done. We actually had one of our team media professionals go out, do a great VR tour, put the property on the market for $650. The property has got off to a slow start because it was an office product, and while we were showing it, it took maybe 30 or 45 days before we really got any headway. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we had 5 showings at the same time. So literally, we got this amazing offer, close to ask, and the contract was just about to be signed. And one thing you need to understand is, if you represent a buyer or if you are the buyer, if your client or you as the buyer want something, don't let time stand in the way of getting it done. You know, there's an old adage, time kills deals. So this buyer took 2 weeks to get their contract signed. Mm-hmm. So during that 2-week period, 2 other buyers literally came out of the woodwork and bid over what this buyer was positioned at. So what's exciting about that is now we have 3 amazing buyers. The one that was original was not only about $30,000 or $40,000 off of the asking price, but was a mortgage needed financing. So you have all kinds of questions and issues regarding financing. They had a due diligence period that they needed to have. The latest buyer is full ask, has no contingencies whatsoever, and it's really exciting and it's moving forward. So that's a real success story where this owner is making a couple $100,000 in this I guess you could call it commercial flip. So it should be closing in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and it's really exciting. And we are happy to have represented both sides of the transaction. So something to look forward to. Who else wants to share a deal?
Well, it's not really a deal. So right now I'm in the process. So I have a particular buyer, and they're very particular about the area that they'd like to be in. And unfortunately, it's a very niche market. It's a $3-4 million market. There's not a lot of homes on the market that are in that area. I guess they want to be in. There's about 6 streets. So since there's not a lot on the market, what I've been doing is kind of going back to the drawing board, and I've been going after either expired listings, withdrawn listings, but I've also been going borderline door to door. And so I actually have somebody that I'm going to visit probably tomorrow evening that is interested. If I get him the right price, he would sell his house. So the good side about that is, I get a house for my client, I help him sell his house, I get to represent both sides in the party or in the deal. So it's not a deal yet, but it's something that I'm currently working on right now as we speak.
How did you find that buyer?
So the buyer was a lead that I've been working with for...
I meant the seller.
Oh, the seller.
Yeah.
Sure. So the seller, what I did was I went into the particular area they want to be in, those 6 streets.
Mm-hmm.
I went into one of our, some software that we have, and I found every house that was appraised or assessed by the town over a certain value that hasn't sold in the last 10 months and was over a certain square footage, just so I can appeal to what they were looking for. And it was also built in the last 10 years, 15 years or so. And I made a list, and I went door to door, and I put notes in every single mailbox, and I mailed them as well. And some people, out of the first 10 that I did, 1 person called back, and I'm going to preview his house. And it could turn into a potential, if it works out, for maybe $4.2 million sale.
So there's what's the adage, everything's for sale at the right price.
Yep.
I get, aside from being an attorney, rockstar deal maker, as Noel inflated me at.
They already forgot that part.
Yeah, well, I have to remind them. I own a considerable amount of real estate, myself and my father. With that, what people have been doing, and I get calls all the time, is, hi, do you want to sell your house? And I'm like, how'd you even get my cell phone number? I think people now are going to all those car insurance warranty people being like, hey, can I have some of your phone numbers? Because we need access. So I get calls almost on a weekly, and of course, no, I don't want to sell it, but everyone, if you get that call, these properties have been held for a very long time, they'll forever probably be held. But you listen to it, and when someone's calling you and they're like, we want to buy it and we're willing to pay you, significant amount of money, I think even people who don't want to sell will take the minute to say, well, how much, right? Because everything is for sale at the right price.
What are we talking about, right?
Right, so I think to your point, don't be afraid if something's not on the market, what you're doing, that kind of hustle that you have, you never know. Because someone really may not want to sell it, but if you call them and they're hearing from their friends how buyers are paying stupid numbers for houses that just don't make sense, really, and they're thinking to themselves, well, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. Maybe you're just that right phone call that had them on the edge, and they're like, you know what, I'll hear you out.
Yeah, and the other thing is, given the market right now, sorry to cut you off, but given the market right now, there are limited houses on the market, and there's also, there's not as much competition when you get to the $3, $4, $5 million range, but there is competition. So you are facing competition from other people. When you have an off market, you have zero competition, because nobody else is really competing with you. You're just going directly to the seller. So you're not going to have other offers generally that you're competing against. It just makes it a lot easier. So
I got a question for you guys, right? Because you all do real estate. You're real estate agents. You have buyers, right? Other than Eric, he's the top of the food chain. But for when you've got clients calling you, right, and they're saying, look, I want to buy a house. I feel like, and we've experienced this with our guys, everyone's like, this is my price range because this is what I can pay in terms of a mortgage. But I never hear people talk about how do property taxes factor into that.
Yeah.
Right? Do you ever get that question? Because imagine how much more buying power you can have if you look at what the property taxes are. Because you could maybe buy a $500,000 more house in a different town.
I'll set you up. So Adam, this is a great question that you're asking, because Adam literally just had a situation a week ago where he needed to go through this exercise. So why don't you talk about it?
So I have a particular buyer. They were looking in a certain area where the taxes are significantly higher, maybe 2.5%, 2.6%.
Pretty much all of New Jersey.
Pretty much all of New Jersey, except for about 6 towns. And at that price, they were looking to spend 1.1, 1.2. So the taxes were $25,000, $27,000, somewhere in that ballpark. What I did was I took them to another house and said, here's another house. Yes, they're asking significantly more. Instead of 1.2, maybe it's 1.8. So, but if you take the difference in the taxes, in that town, the taxes are maybe $17,000. If you take the difference in the taxes, your monthly payment's gonna be very similar. So, there's, several towns throughout the state that just have much lower taxes, and it depends on the area you're looking to be in. You're gonna pay more for the house, but if you have your way, wouldn't you rather pay a higher value for the house than pay higher property taxes?
Of course.
At least you're building equity.
Well, property taxes are forever.
And they're never going down.
Right.
At least you're building equity in the
Right.
house.
Unless you guys call me.
So wait, do you guys have a crazy exciting deal that you're working on right now?
I think every deal is crazy. The question is it exciting, right? In today's market, like everything is crazy. You put a shoe up for sale and you have people calling you like bidding on it. But I've got a deal right now, and the issue is the buyer is a seasoned investor. I mean, the guy knows his stuff, does this for a living, right? And a lot of you guys I'm sure a lot of you guys got interested in doing real estate because somewhere in the back of your mind you're hearing about buying, fixing, reselling, and Omar would really be able to talk a lot about that department. But what he didn't fully account for was the septic, because it had a septic, right? So a lot of people look at it and say, okay, there's a septic. And they look to see if there isn't a septic, then there's a problem. You have to put one in because the law changed and you can't sell a house without a septic system, assuming that you have a septic system, you're not a sewer. But in this scenario, there was a septic, so it's like, okay, it's fine. Turns out that there was an issue with that septic and it does need to be replaced. And what cost 18 grand 5 years ago is now a $30,000 job in today's market, which is a significant adjustment in a flip property or resale property or whatever term you guys want to use for it today. So while it's not exciting, it's interesting because it now threw a major wrench into what otherwise was a great transaction. And this exact transaction also ran into COVID problems because it's a little further out, right? Around here is just a little too hot. So people are going a little further out to different counties where they're getting cheaper properties and they're hitting 3 singles instead of a grand slam and they're comfortable with it. But that delay, right, go back to property taxes. Even if you bought it property cash, right, you're still writing a check every month for your insurance and your property taxes.
They're never going down.
No, that's sunk cost. There's no return on that, right? It's like an HOA fee. You're never gonna get that money back, right? If you're buying a condo, that money's gone. You're never getting it back. That's never gonna be rebuilt back into your price because you're not building equity, right? So,
I'm just going to take a few quick questions and then we're going to get to you, Omar. Okay? We're going to save the best for last, right?
Awesome.
Amy wants to know what's the biggest deal you guys have ever closed. Ever. Big. I want to hear crazy numbers. Let's go.
Well, he's going to have the craziest numbers because he represents a lot of
Crazy
very
number
high net
people,
worth
right.
people.
So
why don't you throw it out first?
I think it was the largest in the state that year, $250 million.
Wow.
God.
I can't compare to that.
Yeah.
The largest that I've ever closed, where I represented a third party, was about 9 million. I have something right now under contract for about 15 million. And then I have something that I'm working on that's about 35 million. Hopefully that one closes. How about you?
Largest for me has been, and this is low compared to them too, but 2.5 million.
Yeah, I'm going to be in the same range.
Yeah.
So I have, right now, I have a house for just under 1.8 under contract. We're negotiating a $6 million deal, but it's not, it's not under contract yet. But then we have buyers ranging from 2 million to 4 million, depending on the town too.
Sure. And who asked that question?
It was Amy.
Amy, just so you understand, from a real estate perspective, as a broker, everybody thinks their commissions range from like 4 to 6%. The higher that number gets, the smaller your commission number gets. So if you're doing a $35 million transaction, you may be getting like a flat fee of like $500,000. You're not going to get 6% of that. The highest percentage I've ever gotten on a big deal, when I did like an $8 million deal, I got 6%, but that was purely let's say luck, and I had a lot of other factors involved, but typically the bigger the deal, it drops down to like 3%.
Amy wants to know why.
Why does the commission
Why?
drop
Why
down?
can't you get the 6% of the,
That's a great question.
250 million?
That's a great question. So typically it's because of lawyers who try to negotiate it down, but there's nothing that keeps you from asking for 6%. So like I have a t-shirt, I didn't wear it today, but it says Mr. 6%. Okay, so I asked for everything.
I want one of those.
Yeah. So I asked for 6% on everything. And what I teach my students or the people that work with me, if you do have to drop, right? It's like, do a striptease. Why drop your pants when you can take off your belt, you can take off your jacket? Go from 6 to go to 5.5%, go to 5, go to 4.75. Like, you can negotiate as slowly or in any type of direction that you want to go. And one of the ways I combat a negotiation is I just say, Mr. Seller, you want me to drop my commission, but this is my value, this is what I'm worth. And just imagine that if I drop my commission now so quickly and so easily for you, what am I going to do to the price of your property or to your house? So my goal is to keep your value as high as possible, just like I'm keeping mine. So that's kind of the way I do it.
Jersey also wants to know that if any of you guys could go back to being a rookie, what would be the biggest thing that you wish you had known then?
Let me do that really quick. So if I could have been a rookie, I would have definitely gone to the Center for Real Estate Education.
Yay, I like that one. See, Center for Real Estate Education.
Right.
So I have an interesting answer to that one,
Yeah.
actually. Guys, being a rookie and not knowing stuff is kind of what gets you to where you end up today, right? So knowledge is power, right? So when you meet people who have more experience with you in the field, maybe you're smarter, maybe you're quicker, maybe you're younger, but you can't learn experience. So take in as much of it as you can. And as a rookie, don't feel like you need to know everything. Just try, make mistakes. Like, I wouldn't change a thing from when I was a rookie to today. I did everything I needed to do. I jumped into every deep end I found. I rolled the dice as much as I possibly could, and I got here today. And just be prepared that you may fail, but as long as you keep trying, you'll eventually get there. It's the people who quit or who stop trying when it's not easy, that they're the ones who think back to, well, what could I have changed when I was a rookie? I don't think there's anyone that you can talk to who as a rookie just went all in, 110%, made 98% mistakes and 3% success, but is successful today, that would say, I would change a thing, right? Of course, hindsight's 20/20, but if you try everything, something will stick. Try everything in one focused department.
And on that note, yeah, it's also, don't be afraid to try new things and think outside the box. So, like I was saying, looking for the off-market properties, everybody goes on the MLS and they look on the MLS and they wait for a house to hit on the MLS. But why not go after, like I said, expireds, withdrawn listings, or people that haven't sold their property in 20 years? Not only can you represent both sides, but you can find the right house for your client, you go above and beyond. So don't be afraid to think outside the box and find a different way. If you're trying to go after if you're a realtor and you're trying to go after a for sale by owner, or you're trying to go after something like that, they get 1,000 phone calls a day from other realtors just like you. You have to find a different way to get in front of them. And that could be, door knocking on a Sunday. There's so many different avenues to go about, getting in front of them that's going to set you apart from everybody else.
Yeah, I don't buy anything that's on the MLS.
Yeah, Omar
If it's on the MLS, it's already overpriced.
And it's too late, yeah. As an investment, it's too late.
As an investor, guys, don't get me wrong. Don't go to all your buyers and be like, no, you don't buy anything on the MLS. Let me work really hard and find you an off-market steal, right? The MLS is where people trade properties, but in the limited instance of being in the mix, and that's what the mix is all about, right? Giving you that inside ingredients that make the cake. These are the stuff that we tell you if when you get to
Are you in the mix?
Am I in the mix? Guess we'll find out next episode.
I think we're all in the mix right
So
here.
I just want to add, Nima made a great point. As far as being a rookie again, I probably wouldn't change much either, because when I was a rookie, my expectations were set. I knew I was beginning and I was trying everything I could. So I didn't stick to one thing and hoped it would work and whatnot. I moved from one thing to another, and that gave me experience in being an agent, getting into investing, working with investors, rentals. So I would recommend, just like he said, try everything and expect, there's a sharp learning curve in real estate, but once you get the basics, you get the snowball going, it's gonna compound into a lot of bigger deals and great results.
Well, I have one thing I would have changed, because that was the question, right?
Yeah.
What I would have changed is I would have started earlier, and I would have tried to find a mentor. It took me a while to even learn about real estate, because I happened to be in a different career path, and real estate was a hobby for me. And then it took me until I was like 28 to go all in. So I have a 14-year-old son almost, and I am like pushing him hard to get into real estate at an early age, because I think it's really the best market out there, just for so many different reasons.
And guys, remember, this is like an old rap quote. 50 Cent said it. I got pennies for my thoughts, now I'm rich. means he had a lot of thoughts.
It's great. Love that quote. Also, what Eric just said, as far as finding a mentor, I tried to find a mentor when I first started. Easier said than done.
I'm trying to think of
I found people who I could work with, but to find an ideal mentor, which is what a lot of people look for when they begin, it may not exist. So just continue working and doing what you have to until you find someone that you can learn with or work with.
And you can change mentors. So
Yeah.
you can kind of like take what you can get. You know, it's like when you're hungry, you just eat whatever. And then as you get more experience, you know what better foods to go after. I had a mentor who was extremely selfish. Once I first found a mentor, he was an old guy, extremely selfish, liked to, we're not supposed to curse here, so liked to screw with me. And it took me a while to figure that out. And once I learned, I cut and ran, and I found a different person to work with. You want to find someone who actually cares. And there's people out there that do. So keep trying.
And if I can add to that, because this is a big pet peeve of mine, right? Because you talk to people and everyone wants to be your mentor because everyone has an opinion, right?
Yeah.
So my personal view is that everyone loves to give me advice, right? Even now, before and now. And I just look at them and I say, okay, and this may sound horrible, but I'm like, well, what do you have, right? If you're not more successful than me by leaps and bounds and weren't at my age, what do I want your advice for? Right? It's like driving a Ferrari and getting advice from like a Ford mechanic. Just doesn't make sense. So if you're gonna find a mentor, look to someone who's already very well established and who wants to teach you, to Eric's point, just to teach you. He's not still in his hustle. Because if someone is still in their hustle, they're not your mentor. They're just gonna
hustle you.
They're gonna use you
Yeah.
because they're still on their grind.
Do the hustle.
You need somebody who's there, who's established, and you know what? Why not? They're doing it out of the goodness of their heart.
And they enjoy it.
Because they have their money. It's in the bank, right? So pick the right mentor and don't listen to everyone's opinion. If they're on the same level as you, or if they're only a little bit ahead of you and they're much older than you, that's not your mentor, right? Find the right mentor if you have to pick one.
And to further that, one more. That mentor, if they don't have experience, so Nima said about the Ferrari and the Ford, mine would have been a Mercury Cougar at the time, but if you don't have the experience, don't ask someone who you respect, should I buy this building, right? Unless they have buildings. You know, it's just like you respect your mom, you respect your dad, and you're going to ask them an opinion on something. You have to cage their opinion. You can respect what they're saying, but if you go to your mom and you're like, Mom, should I buy this investment property? And you know your mom was a computer programmer or she was a homemaker or whatever, she's not really qualified to answer that question. She's just going to give you her opinion from her heart for you. So you have to cage that and understand where it's coming from. And when I bought my first commercial building, I went to a mentor who I had who didn't have experience in real estate, but was a big business guy. And he told me not to buy it. And I actually went against the grain because he was someone close in my circle. And I ended up doing it anyway. And I got a lot of flack from my immediate circle. But you know, fast forward to 2 years after I bought it, I made $1 million profit on that purchase. So had I listened to that mentor, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, guys, trust your gut. And also, this actually is a good point. So when Omar was introduced, he's the vice president of Alexander Anderson Capital Group, right? What is that and what does that mean? And why is that important to what I'm saying? A lot of you guys want to get into the game, right? But the numbers we're talking about, it took a lot of $200,000 deals to get there, right? And you know, even for you guys, look, a $200,000 deal may be a lot, and you may not be ready, and you may not have necessarily a mentor. You know who else is your best mentor? A business partner who's also making money in the deal.
Yes.
Because at that point, it has nothing to do with you. They're out there, they have the experience, they want to make money themselves, so you're just going to make money with them. And that's how you can also get a mentor without just wanting to do it for free. And that's why you should look to things like these capital groups that Omar's the vice president of. Because maybe you drop in a couple bucks, you have 100,000, 200,000 to your life savings, 50,000, right? But you want to stick it into a capital group, right? And there's many capital groups out there. You want to put it into a capital group and then let them do the investing, and you sit back, you show up to the meetings, you look at the docs, you learn, you ask questions, because now they're obligated to give you all the information. You're on the inside of a deal, but you're not first chair, you're second chair. And you're letting the guy with experience be first chair. And after you do that a couple times, maybe now you'll learn or you'll have the confidence to do a deal on your own. So don't think you have to just jump into the deep end. There's things like capital groups that allow you to slowly walk in the pool and watch others swim.
Now that we're talking about Omar and the capital group, give us your crazy exciting deal.
So the deal I was thinking of, I recently closed on a 3-unit building, 2 residentials, commercial on the storefront, retail ground floor. And we bought it based on the numbers, amazing numbers, location's great, but we realized that the utilities are shared. So there's one furnace that heats the entire building. We knew this going in, it's not a big deal, we accepted it. But what I'm dealing with right now, just part of the game, is when the bottom unit is heated, the top unit is cold, and we haven't figured out the balance yet, and it's a big capital expense that we have to account for. So after this wonderful podcast, I'm gonna head over there and work on that, but that's my flavor of the moment in real estate.
Go 1980s Plottle insulation, heat rises.
That's exactly what they want, yeah. So the previous seller said heat rises. I'm like, that's great, but there's ceilings, the first floor turns 90 degrees, the second floor.
Door in between.
Right.
Exactly, so it's not an ideal fix. We have tenants up there, we obviously want them to be warm during winter.
Walk around drilling holes in the corners of each room.
Yeah, right? That might
These are
work.
all jokes, by the way. We're just laughing.
Don't-
Please don't do
Maybe
this.
create-
Do
Don't
not
do
try
this
this
at
at
home,
home.
folks.
Yeah.
Can't you just,
We need disclaimer.
Yeah.
can't you just buy them heating blankets?
Heating blankets, heaters, that's
Standalone
a good,
heaters,
if
right?
only that worked, right?
Well, Tamara wants to
Christmas
know.
gifts.
Tamara wants to know what is the biggest mistake that you've made that you have or maybe have not come back from. Ooh, have not.
I think if none of us came back from the
And listen, that's actually a loaded question because everyone can come back from a mistake. The only reason you don't come back from a mistake is because you gave up.
Yes.
So there should never be a scenario where you can't come back from a mistake.
Great point.
Um,
But I
you
want
know.
to add to that though, there are some deals where you can lose 150, 250 grand, and it's going to take you some time to get back. So you want to avoid those mistakes.
Yeah.
So is that your biggest, 250?
It could have been. No, so
I'll give you guys a story. My biggest mistake personally was I invested in a coffee shop. I'm not a restaurateur, I don't care. But Eric's laughing because he knows about this. And I would frequent there all the time, and the lady's a nice lady and just constantly kept asking me to invest. They wanted to make it into a restaurant, right? Almost like halfway annoyed me to the point where I stroked a check for like, let's say 25 grand, right? And even though I'm a lawyer, I didn't do the due diligence. I'm not a restaurant guy. I know law. I know real estate.
I mean, I know law,
I
but
know coffee.
yeah,
I
know
coffee
that
that I
like to drink, right?
So I would say my biggest mistake is getting involved in a business that I knew nothing about. Because not only apparently did I not get equity in the business because they sold it to someone else after they took a vacation and bought a Benz, but it took me a lawsuit to get my money back, and they still felt like they didn't owe it back to me. So while for me it wasn't a major mistake, like I lost 25 grand, whatever, I got it back later with a discount, it is what it is, that could be a significant amount of money for someone. And the moral of that story is the biggest mistake you can make is trying to be a jack of all trades. Find something you know, focus on that, and give it your attention, and you'll succeed. And maybe you won't succeed, but if you lose, it'll be the cost of doing business, and you'll learn. And that knowledge you get has intrinsic value, right? So if you buy a house and maybe you don't make money on it, right? You lose a couple bucks, you lose 10, 15 grand. What you learn in that process, as long as you're actively a participant, is what you gain from that deal. So consider it like if you guys went to college, you paid more per credit than you would losing 15 grand on a real estate deal. You have to look at it that way. The knowledge you got from that, so it doesn't happen to you again, is worth 4 times the amount you lost. So don't worry about winning and losing. As long as you have a plan, you stick to your numbers, and those numbers maybe don't always pan out. I've never done a deal, by the way, ever, where my numbers have panned out. It's never happened.
Is that the same with everyone? That's scary.
No, my numbers are always perfect.
my numbers work.
No, I'm always 15% to 20%
True.
different.
It varies.
If you guys do a budget at the beginning of a deal and you hit that, I'm going to give you all my money.
Okay.
Unless there's no heat on the second floor.
Well, I represent the capital group. So
Yeah, there we go. There's always a variable, and you have to build in. If you do that budget in the beginning and you're running on the dollar, that's not a successful project. You need to have room in there where you're going to have a 10 to 15% margin of error, and you have to be prepared that you can hit something catastrophic, and that could really cause you to have to invest substantial capital. You need to be prepared to do that because there's nothing worse than being 3/4 into a deal. You're fully tied up with all of your capital. Something big happens and you should otherwise be able to deal with it, but you can't because you've stretched yourself too thin and you have no additional capital sources. And that little thing snowballs. Because every week that your project is delayed because you can't address that issue at that moment is more interest you're paying, especially if you have hard money, is more debt that's being accumulated. There's more taxes being due. You're slower to the market. You're right. You can miss the market. All those things can cost a lot more than you anticipate or think. So be properly capitalized, or else look to capital groups until you can write the checks.
So let me wait. Can I just add 2 things to that?
Do you have a big
You're the
mistake?
boss.
Add 2 things and then give us your big mistake.
I don't ever make mistakes, but that's my first mistake. So first thing is, yes, I do have a mistake, but if you're going to go into a partnership, know your partner. So I've had a couple partnerships in life, aside from my marriage, which is a partnership as well.
For life.
For life. We're going to be 20 years, so the Harry Winston's coming next year. Thank you.
Hey.
Think of all the deals you have to close for Harry Winston.
But you have to know who you're partnering with. Very, very, very important. So it's almost like dating. Like if you're going to meet a partner, don't just jump into bed with them. Like take the time and learn and try to get them in different situations. Go out to dinner, go play golf with them, or play tennis, whatever you want to do. Get them in different situations where you can actually learn who they are as a person. Because as black and white as something can be on paper, their partnership is really with the person. And if they have shitty morals, or if they're just not an honest person, you may not see that in the black and white numbers. And I'm a super, super, super trusting and open person, and because of that, I've been burnt a couple times. And
That's what he has me for.
it's taken me years to get to a point where I can, really feel comfortable with my decisions on people, because my first thing is always to be trusting and to love everybody. But so just be careful with that, but don't become cynical where you don't do anything. So you have to balance it. And then the second point that I wanted to just quickly make is, Nima, I have a coffee shop for you.
Hard pass. Unless I have no partners. And you know what I actually just thought of when you were talking? Imagine an app like Tinder for business. Like, need a partner? Swipe right. Don't like that person? Swipe left.
You just gave it to everyone out there in TV land.
Ignore that.
Whoever wants to
Hey guys, now you're in the mix.
That was it, too.
Adam, big mistake.
One of the mistakes, that I've learned over time is if somebody says I'm willing to spend, I can spend $700,000 on a house, okay? If you keep it exactly $700,000, so a lot of people go on the MLS, and when I first started, this is what I did a lot. You go on the MLS and say, okay, they're interested in this area, $700,000. Then you miss the houses that are just outside that realm. And I'm not, you're not trying to get them to spend more, but the difference of $10,000 on a mortgage is $30 a month. $32 a month.
Yeah.
It's really not a lot of money.
It's a Lunchable.
What was that?
It's a Lunchable.
Yeah, it's a cup of coffee.
Right.
We were just talking about this, right? How much does it cost when you go to Starbucks every time?
Oh my God, I have 4 kids. It costs like $30, $40.
Exactly. So it's less than a trip to Starbucks. So, I always tell people, I'm not here to make you spend more money. I'm not trying to encourage you or push you to spend more money. But on the same side of things, if this house is $720,000, obviously you have to draw the line somewhere. But if you love this house, are you willing to pay an extra $20,000 for it? I've had that happen where I didn't propose the right house to somebody because I capped it at whatever they said. And we ended up missing out on it, and they ended up either seeing it with somebody else and working with somebody else. So I missed out on the opportunity. And you learn. So now if somebody
Hold on,
says...
so there's another adage for you. Buyers are...
Liars.
Buyers are liars. Anyway, go back. Sorry.
Wait, why are buyers liars?
Because if they're smart, they would offer $720 for the $720 and then beat them up in the home inspection and still get it for $700.
That's a strategy. We'll talk about it another
Ooh.
But
you're not that deep in the mix yet, guys. You got to tune in for like 8 more
They'll
episodes.
tell you I can spend $700, and then you'll call them back. Oh yeah, I found a house. It's perfect. It's $800,000. I'm already under contract. You're like, you told me 700. So every time somebody says 700, I take that with a grain of salt. And I always tell them that same line. I tell them, look, I'm obviously not trying to get you to spend more money, but this house is perfect for you. It's $740,000. Right. And especially if you go to a town with lower taxes, now you can say, you can spend $850,000 in whatever town it might be, Mawa, any particular town that has low taxes. And in doing so, it'll cost you the same amount per month as a higher tax town.
Right.
So, and a lot of people don't realize that.
So I'm not trying to plug Saddle River, right? But phenomenal taxes, right? We
I
talked
just
about
sent a
a couple
house
of
to
towns.
somebody last night. 1.8 million, 1.9 million. Taxes are $11,000.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I pay more than that on my house, and it's not worth 1.9 million.
Right? So I personally live in Saddle River. Phenomenal
I
town.
have no idea.
Surprise! He does. But, we have a great mayor, Mayor Kirpus. Like, the way they run the town is just phenomenal. It's a great place. But again, it goes back to taxes.
Yep.
Because remember, guys, that's buying power. And that's buying power in terms of equity, not debt. So you're not paying taxes. Like, you're using that money and you're creating equity in your property, which has a greater value than originally anticipated than paying property taxes. Which, how does the SALT work? It's up to a certain number anyway.
$10,000.
Yeah, so at this point,
SALT is the state and local taxes, your deductions that you're able to make, and obviously consult an accountant. Don't believe anything I say here because I'm not, I'm not an accountant. I'm a realtor. But on that side of things, you're allowed to only deduct $10,000 of your state taxes, your property taxes, as well as your local, your income tax too. I think is built into there. So you go to a town, you're spending $30,000 on taxes, you can only deduct $10,000. So if you go to a town like Saddle River, which Saddle River's, yes, it's not the least expensive town. It's a beautiful town. It's more expensive than a lot of the neighboring towns, but the taxes are substantially less than, I don't know, a town like Hohokus.
substantially less.
So you can afford more in a town like Saddle River than you can in Hohokus. And they might tell you, well, I don't want to spend $1.5 million. I only want to spend $1 million, but it's going to cost you the same amount of money. And you're going to get a better house, and you're going to be paying down principal.
And you save that money in Saddle River because you need to take the money that you saved to go buy a boat so you can get around when the town floods.
Saddle River doesn't flood though. All right.
Okay, your mistake.
Climb the trees.
Make it a good one. Make it a juicy one.
Where do I even start? I could say that, well, I've gone from being a realtor to flipping houses, investing, and I'd like to think, this may sound strange, but I made every mistake in the book because that's just the process that I took and that's just the path that I went down. So one mistake that comes to mind on my rehabs, my numbers are always good, which Nima made a great point, that your numbers have to be good. And because my numbers were good, I came very close to hitting the margin where I would have lost. And the mistake in that was underestimating the time it would take, permits, city delays, partnership. Eric had a great point as well. I had a partnership that went bad. I was responsible for a rehab that was an hour away from my house. I had to take over it and do a gut renovation. So in terms of mistakes, there's a lot, and that's part of the game. And the point is to learn from them and continue doing more deals.
Can I ask you a question to the audience? Guys, I'm going to throw a question because this was fun. This was fun for us too. I don't know how much time we have left. But you guys actually listening, right? And we've kind of touched on a lot. Why don't you guys just message over on the message board and ask us what interests you and what you would want us to talk about, right? So,
well, Jersey already has a question, and she wants you, Jersey, wants you to talk about commercial versus residential, and if you want to be a commercial agent, what pathway do you take to get there?
Well,
that's like an entire episode.
I just want to tell you that Alexander Anderson Real Estate Group does both commercial and residential, so I'm going to throw this to Eric for a second.
But can I just say something quickly before you even start? This is something that you told me. I'm going anyway.
And that's how you know he's El Jefe.
When I first started here, and I was toying around with commercial versus residential, and you can do both. But when I was first toying around with both of them, you said that the good thing about commercial is it's typically 9 to 6 or whatever it might be. It's typically regular business hours. Residential, you're on call 24 hours a day. I answer messages at 11 o'clock at night, Saturdays, Sundays. So I'm not complaining about it, but it's just a completely different animal with regards to that with your timing. Not a lot of people want to see a house at 9 o'clock in the morning. They typically want to see it at 7 o'clock at night when they get off of work.
You're like a doctor in residential because you're always on call with everything. I started in residential. I think it's an easier point of entry. I always think that having a broad knowledge base of trying everything when you first get started is great because it gives you the exposure to what's out there. Typically, smaller residential deals close faster than commercial deals. However, commercial deals tend to have bigger paydays when you get into the bigger commercial properties. Let's say you're selling a warehouse for $5 million, you're going to get a bigger check than if you're selling a house for $1 million or $1.5 million. What I liked personally about commercial is I'm like a business person, let's say. So when I would go to residential and I would go show a house and the carpeting was green, and I'm going to try to be politically correct here. If the homemaker, so that could have been a housewife or a house husband, came into the house and was like, "Oh my God, I hate this green carpeting," and they didn't want to buy the house because they couldn't visualize the green carpeting not being there. So it frustrated me that there was nothing I could really do to change that person's mind or to motivate them off of certain things to buy that house, right? So, because most people, when they're in a house, they don't know how to visualize, a renovation or cosmetic changes. They can't do it, so they're looking at what's there. For me, with commercial, because of my business experience and my business acumen, I could actually help people with numbers by showing them what they're going to make if they buy this property, or by helping them understand what they could put in this property, or with my prior business experience, helping them understand what it would be like to take their business and put it in here, and the benefits of property ownership. Or similarly with leasing situations, if I'm getting a business to move into a new area. So for me, it was something that I could manipulate more and offer and have more of my heart and give more of a concrete answers, which I felt I could help get to closing better with. So residential just wasn't for me. That doesn't mean that there aren't people that can do that. I know that there's plenty of again, I'm trying to be politically correct, plenty of women out there. I know one specifically who's a designer businesswoman, and she can go into any property, and just with her excitement and her how she talks to people, she can help them see visually what a house could look like differently. And if you're that type of person, man or woman, I think that could be an angle for you. So it's really about your personality, and it's also about what you like. I like residential and commercial, but I just gravitated towards the commercial. It's just more fun and more exciting for me. And for me, there's less limitations on it. So if I want to go and find a 10-acre piece of property, I can turn that into whatever I want. I can bring a builder there, I can divide it, and I can sell off lots, I can put a strip mall there, I could do whatever I want. It's just more creative, it's more, makes my brain work a little harder, I think. That's just me. But everybody has their own flavor, and that's why I would encourage you to try a little bit of everything.
So just to Eric's point, right? So from an outside standpoint, because I'm not a real estate agent, right? I'm an attorney and an investor myself. When you're involved in commercial real estate as agents, somebody like me is going to be looking to and relying on you to be really good with numbers and knowing your facts and knowing the area. Because residential is easy. You pull comps, you get it, you understand. Commercial is a very different beast. Like, I'll give you an example. I bought a commercial unit and I went to Eric because while I'm very, very versed in residential real estate pretty much my whole life, right? I don't know much about commercial. It doesn't translate immediately and that easily. So I look to Eric for knowledge as to what's the price per square foot, what is the average rental rate, even in terms of what I should do for reno, right? How should I build this out? How much should I spend on construction so I get my money back? Will it pay off? I don't know these things. And if Eric didn't know them or couldn't guide me properly, he could do me a disservice. I know Eric does, that's why I go to him as a friend, as a broker, as an agent, as a person knowledgeable in this. So if you're gonna get into commercial and you're doing it for one of your clients and that's how you make money, don't try, be smart and know what you're not good at and look to, again, the mentor or someone else to guide you in that. And someone else posted there, about joining Alexander Anderson's real estate group, right? It's not a bad idea when you have somebody like Eric, if you want to be in both areas, to look to for that type of a mentorship. Because you need to know, your clients will ask you. There's not a single buyer out there who's not going to call you and say, what's a price per square footage? What's things going for? Because look, they're not really looking to buy and flip usually when it comes to commercial. Those are institutional investors because sometimes you can run higher vacancies in residential. You have to have your money tied up. Those are guys who are looking to hold that property for a prolonged period of time and will look to you for not just the purchase, but the subsequent renting of that building after they're done with their construction. So really know your stuff once you start getting into commercial because it is very, very number and knowledge intensive. Would that be fair to say?
It's very fair to say. It's subjective. You have to like what you're doing. Adam's a super smart guy. He has a lot of experience in business sales prior to doing residential. He just that was his niche. That's his thing. He likes it. He could do both, but he likes residential better. It's just, for me, it was just, I like the commercial. I like the building. I was a business person from when I was 12. I used to run the student store in my, middle school. So I was always a business guy. So for me, that's why I gravitated there. Everybody has different flavors.
But there's no reason you can't, like you said, that you can't do both. So I generally focus on residential, but if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'm looking for an office building, I'm looking for something else, there's no reason that I'm still going to work that just the same way I'd work a residential lead, because it still is a lead and I'm still going to help them find the property that they want.
And because you're knowledgeable, but you could also pull on a co-broker or co-agent.
You could always have somebody from the office join you and you can work on it together.
But the difference is he's going to market himself. And correct me if I'm wrong. You're promoting yourself as a residential person, not as a commercial person. Whereas me, I don't promote myself as a residential. I would promote myself as a commercial.
So a lot of people are asking, we're going to get to that. A lot of people are asking, how do you shadow them for a day? How do you get in touch? How do you join Alexander Anderson? You could always go to alexander-anderson.com. You can also call the school at 201-343-6640, and I will give you all of the info. Myself, Lauren, or Aaron will give you all of the information you need. But let's go to this question, because this is something that I think we all want to know from successful people. It's always interesting to know what things do they do that get them to that goal. So what is one small thing that each person does every single day that helps you towards success?
Wake up.
Don't sleep.
On time.
I'm never on time. My on time is 15 minutes late.
I can attest.
So I love that. His 15 is my 45. I love that question. Why? Because I don't think that has an answer. I think it has to be internal. It's not something you do. It's probably the one thing that physics doesn't apply to. There's no action reaction. It's not like if you wake up and you write a checklist that you'll do that checklist, right? You read all these motivational books that say, do this, do that. If you do this, you will succeed. To me, and I mean this respectfully to all these authors who wrote the books, it's bullshit.
Ebook.
Right? Why? Because the only thing that can make you want to succeed is yourself. It's not the money. You guys will make the money. You'll realize successful people have made their money. There's a reason they haven't retired yet. It's something that just needs to be inside of you, that you want to wake up and just be savage that day. You want to just find something and you want to go at it at 120%. And it doesn't even mean it has to be productive for business. It could be waking up on a Saturday, you have a kid, and building something for your child. You just need to wake up and have a drive internally for yourself for wanting to get at a task and complete it and being the best version of yourself. There's nothing you can do. There's no small task. There's no one individual thing, in my opinion, that will somehow trigger some genes in you to want to have a drive.
Let's give some good one-liners. What are some of the things? What is something that you do every day that you feel, I get it, it has to be inside of you. It has to be that fire. Are you a fire starter? It has to be that fire that's burning you. You got one?
Visualization.
Yes.
That's a
If
good
you
one.
visualize it, you can own it.
Drink a cup of coffee. Just one thing I do every single morning.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It'll get you going.
Is it spiked? Or
This is number 3 for today, right? Not a good habit, by the way, guys. But
Don't take no as an answer. Don't take no. You're going to be told no. You're going to be told they're not looking to sell. You're going to be all these different things. You have to find a way around it.
And let me tell you, when Adam says don't take no, I know him very well. It's exhausting. So he means that.
Yeah. So just to add to Nima's comment, which was great, I agree that there's no small thing that's consistent, but what happens is as you start pursuing something that you believe in, you develop habits, and those habits turn into those small things on a daily basis. So for me, it's waking up early. I love my mornings. I'll decide whether or not it's worth going out at night if it beats what I can do in the morning. That's my decision making at this point.
here's some basic numbers to that, right,
Yeah.
guys? Just do the math, right? So you figure you have 5 business days a week. 5 business days. Assuming you're not working Saturday and Sunday, which you should if you want to be successful, because no one successful doesn't work on the weekends. Sorry. At 5 days a week, if you normally wake up at 8 a.m. to get to work at 9, right? And you choose to wake up at 6:30 instead, right? That gives you an hour and a half more a day. Multiply that by 5 days. What do you have? You have 7.5 hours, right? Assuming my math is right. 6.5 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? So that's another full day of productivity you just added to your schedule from merely waking up an hour and a half earlier. And the only reason you're not waking up an hour and a half earlier is because you either go to bed too late, right? Or you're just being lazy and you don't want to wake up earlier.
Or you're tired.
But you can be tired and wake up and still grind. Yeah. I mean, who's successful? Well, you're only successful when you're not tired and well rested. I don't get a massage every morning before I get into the office. Relax, cucumbers on my eyes.
You just told us you're grinding every morning.
Yeah, I'm so grumpy in the mornings, right? Because I'm just like at 200 miles an hour. But that's a reality. And then guys, work on Saturdays. Put in 4 hours every Saturday, right? There's 52 weeks a year, right? Which means you can have 52 hypothetical Saturdays. At 4 hours, you're adding 208 hours to your year on top of the person to your left and to your right.
Math.
All right, so I was an engineer before I was a lawyer. So all right, 208 hours. Now, if you divide that out over the course of 8 hours a day, I mean, you're talking about what, like 27 some odd, 26 extra days. Like that's an entire month of productivity you added just by working 4 hours a day on Saturdays. So that means the guy to your right, you've worked 1 month a year more than him. You have a 13-month year. So you know everyone's saying like, oh, I wish I had more time. You do have more time. You can have a 13-month year and imagine how much more money you'll make, another month of income for 4 measly hours a week.
So we're gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna say that I make sure that I have time to myself every day so I can be quiet. I talk a lot and I'm very perky and I'm very excitable. So I need to make sure every day that I have downtime and that I can be quiet and sort of just not block out everything else. But we're gonna wrap this up.
Is that the hour when I call you that you don't answer?
No, but
Sundays is to pray to get a sip. You gotta do that too, guys.
So we're gonna quickly go through and I just want everyone to give a quick tip, a very quick tip that people can take with them this week. Something in your specialty. Starting with you.
I would say when you start getting into doing deals, always do your due diligence. Before you buy, to get too excited about the deal, make sure the numbers make sense, because if they don't get involved.
Think outside the box.
Read every line. Don't think because you're not a lawyer or you're not someone else that you shouldn't read the documents you sign. Usually, it's just in English. Just read it. You'll learn and you won't put yourself in a bad position.
And mine is be responsive. I can't tell you how many people, like if I have a potential lead that contacts me, it could be 2 o'clock in the morning. If they text me or call me at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm awake, I'm gonna answer them. So on the residential end especially, be responsive. I can't tell you how many people tell me that other people just don't get back to them. So just get back to them, be as responsive as you can be. I don't care what you're doing. Just think of every lead as a potential sale and it brings you closer to your goal.
Awesome.
So our goal, guys, is to do this every week. Maybe different topics, maybe we'll add someone. This is our core team of experts. And it's our job to keep you guys in the mix. It's our job to keep you here at the Center for Real Estate Education all in the know. So we will be back next Thursday. So if you want to spend your lunchtime with us, get your popcorn, come on up. Anything you want to say?
We'll see you in the mix.
Yes, we'll see you in the mix.